The words hit me like a slap across the face. Your daughter can't join the family vacation. We need space, my sister-in-law Vanessa declared over the phone, her voice dripping with that sugary sweetness she used when delivering her most cutting remarks. I gripped the kitchen counter, knuckles turning white, as 15 years of swallowed insults and forced smiles threatened to erupt from my chest. I'm sorry. What did you just say about my daughter? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Oh, Caroline, don't make this difficult, Vanessa sighed dramatically. The beach house is only so big, and with all our children, there simply isn't room for extras. You understand, don't you? Family comes first. Family comes first. The irony wasn't lost on me. In Vanessa's world, my 17-year-old daughter Lily wasn't real family, just because I'd married her father when she was 4. Never mind that I'd raised her, loved her, and been more of a mother to her than her biological one, who disappeared to find herself in Bali and never returned. Lily is family, I said, the words coming out clipped and cold. Well, yes, of course, in a manner of speaking. But you know what I mean. Blood family. I did know what she meant. It was the same thing she'd meant at every Christmas, when Lily's gifts were noticeably cheaper than her cousins. The same thing she'd meant when Lily wasn't included in the cousin's photo at family gatherings. The same thing she'd meant when she'd conveniently forgotten to invite Lily to her daughter's sweet 16, despite inviting every other teenager in the family. But this was different. This was the annual Mitchell family vacation, a tradition that had started when my husband Robert's parents were still alive. A week at their old beach house in Cape Cod, now co-owned by Robert and his brother James, Vanessa's husband. Lily had been going since she was 5 years old. It was her favorite week of the year. Robert won't agree to this, I said, knowing my husband would never allow his daughter to be excluded. Oh, James already talked to him, Vanessa said, and I could practically hear her examining her manicure through the phone. Robert understands the space constraints. And honestly, Caroline, Lily's practically an adult now. She might appreciate a week alone. God knows I would have at her age. My blood ran cold. Robert had agreed to this? Without talking to me first, I heard the front door open and close, the familiar sound of my husband's keys hitting the entryway table. I need to go, I said quietly. Perfect. So it's settled. We'll see you and Robert next Saturday. And with that, she hung up. I stood in our kitchen, hands shaking, as Robert walked in. One look at my face, and his smile faded. What's wrong? He asked. You told James that Lily can't come on the family vacation? My voice was barely above a whisper. Robert's face fell, guilt written across his features. I mean, not exactly. James called and said they were thinking maybe this year with all the kids bringing friends. I just said we could talk about it. Well, Vanessa just informed me it's decided. Lily isn't welcome because, and I quote, family comes first. I spat out the last words. Robert's face darkened. That's not what James said. He mentioned space, constraints, not. Do you honestly believe that? After everything Vanessa has pulled over the years? Robert ran a hand through his graying hair. At 48, the lines around his eyes had deepened, especially in the 3 years since he'd taken over as CEO of Mitchell Airways, the small but successful charter airline his father had founded. The responsibility weighed on him, and his relationship with his brother, the company's CFO, had grown increasingly strained. I'll call James right now, he said, pulling out his phone. Don't bother, I said, turning away to hide the tears threatening to spill. I need some air. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, ignoring Robert calling my name. I couldn't bear to hear him defend his brother or, worse, suggest that maybe Lily could sit this one out. The very thought made my stomach turn. Outside, the June sun beat down on our suburban Boston neighborhood. I walked without direction, mind racing. This wasn't just about a vacation. This was about years of Lily being treated as less than, of me silently enduring Vanessa's subtle jabs for the sake of family harmony. It was about Robert's inability to stand up to his brother, about James's inability to stand up to his wife. But mostly it was about Lily. My beautiful, kind-hearted Lily, who had somehow managed to remain unscathed by Vanessa's years of exclusion. Or so I thought. How many times had she noticed, but said nothing? How many times had she shrunk herself to fit into the spaces her aunt and uncle deemed appropriate for her? My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Please come home. We need to talk about this." I ignored it and kept walking, ending up at the small park where I used to take Lily when she was little. I sat on a bench, watching young mothers push toddlers on swings, remembering how Lily used to beg for, "One more push, Mommy, please." She'd never called me anything but Mom since the day Robert and I had gotten married. Her biological mother hadn't even shown up for the custody hearing when Robert had filed for full custody. I was the one who'd taught Lily to read, who'd nursed her through chicken pox and broken hearts, who'd stayed up late helping with science projects and college applications. And now she was being told she wasn't family enough for the family vacation. Another text from Robert. I called James. "This is all a misunderstanding. Please come home." A misunderstanding. Right. Like every other time Vanessa had done something hurtful and then played innocent. Like the time she'd misunderstood that Lily's severe peanut allergy meant no peanut products at all and had served peanut butter cookies at the family Christmas party. Or when she'd misunderstood that Lily was supposed to be included in the girls' shopping trip and had left without her. But as angry as I was at Vanessa, I was more upset with Robert. He should have shut this down immediately. He should have told his brother there was no way his daughter was being excluded. Instead, he'd said we could talk about it. By the time I made it home, I'd worked myself into a righteous fury. Robert was sitting at the kitchen table, looking troubled. "I talked to James," he said as soon as I walked in. "He claims Vanessa misinterpreted what they discussed. He says of course Lily is invited." "Really? And did you ask him why Vanessa would tell me, explicitly, that Lily can't come because family comes first?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. "James says Vanessa would never say that you must have misunderstood." Of course. I was being painted as the hysterical, misunderstanding wife. Again, where's Lily? I asked, suddenly needing to see my daughter. Still at Emma's house. She's staying for dinner, remember? I nodded, relieved she hadn't been home to witness any of this. "So what did you tell James?" "That of course Lily is coming. She's always come. It's a family tradition." I studied his face, wanting to believe him, but seeing the doubt in his eyes. "But—" Robert sighed. "But he did mention that the house is getting crowded. His 3 kids are all bringing friends this year, and with us and Aunt Betty coming. So they get to bring friends, but your daughter gets excluded?" "That's not what I'm saying," Robert protested. "I'm just explaining what James said. He suggested maybe we could rent a hotel room nearby for part of the family." "Let me guess. Us. He wants us to stay in a hotel while he and Vanessa and their perfect biological family stay in the beach house that your parents left to both of you." Robert winced. "Caroline, you're not being fair. James has always been good to Lily." "No. James has always looked the other way while his wife treats Lily like a second-class citizen. And you've let him." The words hung in the air between us. I hadn't meant to say it out loud. This resentment I'd been carrying for years. But now that it was out, I couldn't take it back. And from the look on Robert's face, I'd struck a nerve. "That's not true," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It is true, and we both know it. And now you're seriously considering having us stay in a hotel so that Vanessa gets her way." "I didn't say that. You just what? Thought it would be easier to give in like always? Well, not this time." I grabbed my phone and started typing. "What are you doing?" Robert asked. "Booking flights. If we're going to Cape Cod, we're doing it on our terms." "Caroline, be reasonable. The company jets are all booked that weekend for corporate clients. And flying commercial to Cape Cod at the height of summer will cost a fortune. I looked up from my phone, a cold smile forming on my lips. Who said anything about flying commercial? The look of confusion on Robert's face would have been comical if I wasn't so angry. What are you talking about? I'm chartering a private jet. Robert stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. With what money? My money. Another thing Vanessa and James conveniently like to forget. Before marrying Robert, I'd been a successful investment banker. I'd taken time off when Lily was young, then started my own financial consulting firm which had thrived. While we lived primarily on Robert's income, allowing us to save mine, I made a very good living. A living that Vanessa, who'd never worked a day in her life, regularly dismissed as my little business. Caroline, that's ridiculous. It's a 2-hour drive to Cape Cod. It's not about the transportation, Robert. It's about making a point. Robert ran a hand over his face. And what point is that exactly? That we're willing to waste thousands of dollars to spite Vanessa? No, the point is that Lily is our family. And if Vanessa wants to play games about who belongs and who doesn't, then she's picked the wrong opponent. Our standoff was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Lily walked in, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, cheeks flushed from the summer heat. "Hey, guys," she said, dropping her backpack on a chair. "What's going on? You both look weird." Robert and I exchanged glances. "Nothing, honey," I said quickly. "Just discussing the family vacation." "Oh, awesome." Lily's face lit up. "I can't wait. Emma was just saying how jealous she is that we go to Cape Cod every year." My heart clenched at her excitement. There was no way I was going to let Vanessa rob her of this. "Actually, Lil," Robert said, "there might be some changes this year. Uncle James's kids are all bringing friends, so it's going to be crowded." Lily's smile dimmed slightly. "Oh, well, that's okay. I don't mind sharing a room with the girls. Or I can sleep on the pull-out couch like last year." "It's not just that," Robert continued, shooting me a look that begged for help. "We might need to stay at a hotel instead of the beach house." "A hotel?" Lily's disappointment was palpable. "But it's tradition to stay at Grandma and Grandpa's house. We always have." "I know, sweetie, but your Aunt Vanessa seems to think there's not enough room for everyone." I cut in, unable to let Robert sugarcoat it. "Specifically, there's not enough room for you." "Caroline!" Robert exclaimed. "What?" "It's the truth. I'm not going to lie to her." Lily looked between us, confusion turning to hurt understanding. "Aunt Vanessa doesn't want me to come." "No, that's not," Robert began. "Yes," I said firmly. "She told me you couldn't come because family comes first, and apparently you don't count as family in her book." Lily's eyes filled with tears, and I immediately regretted my bluntness. I crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. "I'm sorry, baby. I shouldn't have said it like that." "It's okay," she whispered, but I could feel her tears soaking into my shirt. "I've always known Aunt Vanessa doesn't like me." "That's not true," Robert insisted, coming to join our hug. "Vanessa is just difficult sometimes, and James says it was all a misunderstanding anyway." Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Dad, I'm not stupid. She's always treated me differently. I just never said anything because I didn't want to make things hard for you guys." My heart broke all over again. All these years, she'd noticed. Of course she had. She'd just been protecting us, when we should have been protecting her. "Well, I'm done with it," I declared. "We're not staying in a hotel. We're not being pushed aside. We're going to Cape Cod, we're going to the beach house, and we're showing up in style." "What does that mean?" Lily asked. I grinned, feeling a little reckless. "It means, how would you like to arrive at the family vacation in a private jet?" Lily's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "She's not serious," Robert said, giving me a warning look. "Your mother is just upset." "I'm dead serious," I countered. "In fact, I've already got some quotes." I hadn't, but I would. And I'm thinking we should invite Emma to come with us. Mom. Lily gasped. Really? Really, I confirmed. If James's kids can bring friends, so can you. Caroline, this is getting out of hand, Robert said, but I could see the fight going out of him. He knew I was right, even if he was too conflict-averse to admit it. No, what's out of hand is allowing your brother's wife to treat your daughter like she doesn't matter. I turned to Lily. Go call Emma. See if she's free that week. Lily hesitated, looking at her father. Robert sighed, then nodded. Go ahead. If we're doing this, we might as well go all in. Lily squealed and threw her arms around both of us before racing upstairs to call her friend. Once she was gone, Robert turned to me. You know this is going to cause a war with Vanessa and James. A war they started, I replied. Besides, it's about time we stood up to them. It's not that simple. James and I work together. This could affect the company. If your brother would let a family squabble affect the business your father built, then that's his problem, not ours. Robert didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue further. Just promise me you'll be civil when we get there. I smiled sweetly, channeling my inner Vanessa. Oh, I'll be civil. I'll be the very picture of grace and class. Right up until the moment we step off that private jet and Vanessa realizes that she picked the wrong sister-in-law to mess with. The week leading up to the vacation was a flurry of activity. True to my word, I chartered a luxurious private jet through a competitor of Mitchell Airways. A petty move, perhaps, but a satisfying one. I arranged for a car service to meet us at the small Cape Cod airport. I bought a new wardrobe for myself, for Lily, and even for Emma, whose parents had enthusiastically agreed to let her join us. Robert watched all of this with a mixture of anxiety and reluctant admiration. The night before our departure, as we packed our bags, he finally said what had been on his mind all week. You know this isn't like you, right? All this showing off. I folded a sundress carefully into my suitcase. Maybe it's time I tried something new. 15 years of taking the high road hasn't changed anything. Robert sat on the edge of the bed. I know I haven't always stood up to James and Vanessa the way I should have. I just never wanted to rock the boat. Our parents always wanted us to get along, to keep the family and the business together. I understand that, Robert. I do. But at some point, you have to decide what's more important, keeping the peace or standing up for your daughter. He nodded slowly. You're right. I haven't done enough. But I'm with you on this, 100%. I sat beside him and took his hand. Thank you. That's all I've ever wanted. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect flying weather. Our car service arrived promptly at 8 to take us to the private airfield. Lily and Emma could barely contain their excitement, taking selfies in the town car and giggling about how bougie the whole experience was. Do you think Aunt Vanessa knows we're coming like this? Lily asked as we pulled up to the airfield. No, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. I asked her father not to mention it to Uncle James. I thought it would be a nice surprise. Robert shot me a look, but didn't contradict me. He'd made exactly one phone call to James that week, simply confirming that we'd be arriving Saturday afternoon and would be bringing Lily's friend Emma. James had been surprised, but hadn't objected, proving my point that the space constraints had been Vanessa's invention all along. The jet was everything I'd hoped for, sleek, luxurious, with leather seats and a professional flight crew that treated us like royalty. As we took off, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For once, I wasn't going to this family gathering feeling like I needed to make myself small, to accommodate Vanessa's ego. For once, I was going to take up space. The flight was short but sweet. When we landed, another car was waiting to take us to the beach house. As we drove through the picturesque Cape Cod towns, I felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if this display would only make things worse. But then I'd look at Lily, so happy and excited beside her best friend, and know I'd made the right choice. When we pulled up to the Mitchell family beach house, I could see that the others had already arrived. James's SUV was parked in the driveway, alongside Vanessa's luxury sedan. The large, shingled house overlooked the ocean, just as it had for the 30 years since Robert's parents had bought it. Despite everything, I felt a pang of nostalgia. I'd spent many happy summers here, and it was where Lily had learned to swim, had built her first sand castle, had experienced so many childhood milestones. "Ready?" Robert asked, squeezing my hand as the driver unloaded our luggage. "As I'll ever be," I replied. We walked up the shell pathway to the front door, Lily and Emma following behind us. Before we could knock, the door swung open, revealing Vanessa. Her perfectly highlighted hair was pulled back in a casual yet clearly expensive style. Her slim figure shown off in white linen pants and a navy blue top that probably cost more than most people's entire vacation wardrobes. For a split second, genuine shock registered on her face as she took in the unexpected sight of all four of us, especially Emma. Then her features rearranged themselves into her usual mask of polite condescension. "Well, well," she said, her gaze flicking from me to the departing town car. "You've certainly made an entrance. Was that a Mitchell Airways car?" "No," I replied with a sweet smile. "Mitchell was all booked up. We had to charter with Lux Aviation instead, and fly into the airport instead of driving. Such a shame." Understanding dawned on Vanessa's face, followed quickly by disbelief. "You flew here? From Boston? That's barely 100 miles. 112, actually," I corrected her. "But you know what they say, time is money. And speaking of money, Vanessa, I heard you were concerned about space in the house this week." Her eyes narrowed. "I was just being practical, Caroline. We have a lot of people this year." "Well, you'll be happy to know that we've solved the problem. We've decided to contribute to the food and utility costs for the week to offset the burden of our presence." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope, which I pressed into her startled hands. $5,000 should cover it, don't you think?" Behind Vanessa, James appeared in the entryway, his mouth dropping open at the scene unfolding on the front porch. "What's going on?" he asked, coming to stand beside his wife. Robert cleared his throat. "We're just arriving for vacation, James. I hope you don't mind that we invited Lily's friend Emma to join us." James looked from the envelope in Vanessa's hands to our luggage to the town car, now disappearing down the drive. "Of course not," he said slowly. "The more the merrier. But did you fly here?" "Private jet," Lily piped up, unable to contain her excitement any longer. "It was amazing, Uncle James. Mom chartered it from Lux Aviation. It had leather seats, and they served us breakfast and everything." I watched as James processed this information, his businessman's mind no doubt calculating exactly how much we'd spent on this extravagant arrival. Next to him, Vanessa's face had gone rigid, the envelope clutched in her white-knuckled grip. "Well," she said, finally, her voice tight, "isn't that something? I suppose you'd better come in." She stepped aside, allowing us to enter the house where the rest of the family was already settled. As we crossed the threshold, Robert leaned close to whisper in my ear, "I think you made your point." I smiled, watching as Vanessa tried to process what had just happened. "Oh, I'm just getting started." The interior of the beach house was exactly as I remembered it. Spacious open-plan living area, weathered hardwood floors, and windows that framed the Atlantic like a postcard. But the atmosphere was anything but familiar. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife as we stepped inside. James and Vanessa's 3 children, Madison, Parker, and Tyler, lounged on the sectional sofa with their friends, all teenagers absorbed in their phones. Aunt Betty, Robert's father's sister, sat in the window seat with her knitting. Everyone looked up as we entered, curious expressions turning to outright surprise when they saw Emma. "Look who's here," James announced with forced joviality. "And they've brought a guest. This is..." Emma Lily supplied, stepping forward with more confidence than I'd ever seen her show in this house. My best friend. Mom thought it would be fun if she joined us this year. Aunt Betty beamed, setting aside her knitting to come hug us. At 72, she was the family matriarch and the only one who'd always treated Lily with genuine warmth. How wonderful, she exclaimed. The more the merrier, I always say. And how did you all get here? I didn't hear a car. They chartered a private jet, Mother, James told her, his voice carefully neutral despite the muscle twitching in his jaw. All the way from Boston. Aunt Betty's eyebrows shot up. A private jet? My goodness, Caroline, how glamorous. Is Mitchell Airways branching out into luxury charters now, Robert? No, Aunt Betty, Robert replied, setting down our bags. This was Caroline's idea, a special treat. He shot me a look that was part warning, part admiration. Well, I think it's marvelous, Aunt Betty declared. Life's too short not to enjoy a little luxury now and then. From her position, still by the door, Vanessa made a noise that might have been agreement or might have been a scoff. The envelope with the money was nowhere to be seen. She'd made it disappear as quickly as possible. We've already assigned rooms, she said briskly, but I'm afraid we didn't account for an extra person. That's all right, I replied smoothly. Lily and Emma can share, can't you girls? Both nodded eagerly. But where? Vanessa pressed, a triumphant gleam in her eye. All the rooms are taken. Madison has the blue room, Parker is in the green room with his friend Zach, Tyler is in the small bedroom with his friend Jason, and James and I have the master. Aunt Betty has the sunroom, and we'd assumed you and Robert would take the guest room. What about the den? Robert suggested. We could put the pull-out couch there for the girls. Vanessa's smile was all teeth. Parker and Zach are using that as their gaming room. All their equipment is set up. Of course, Vanessa had arranged things perfectly to prove her point about there not being enough space, while making sure her own children had everything they wanted. That's fine, I said, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me flustered. Lily and Emma can have the guest room. Robert and I will take the boathouse. The boathouse was a small structure at the edge of the property, overlooking the water. It had a bedroom, a tiny bathroom, and not much else. It was used mainly for storage and had a musty and used feel to it. The boathouse! Vanessa repeated, unable to hide her surprise. But it's barely habitable. There's no air conditioning, and I don't think it's been cleaned in years. Then it's a good thing we brought that money for cleaning supplies, I replied sweetly. Lily, Emma, why don't you take your bags upstairs? Robert and I will get settled in the boathouse. The girls hurried off, giggling with excitement. Robert grabbed our suitcases, giving James a look that dared him to object. James, to his credit, seemed uncomfortable with the whole situation. Caroline, really, we can figure something else out, he said. Maybe Parker's friend could bunk with Tyler and Jason, and the girls could have the green room. Oh, I wouldn't dream of inconveniencing your children, I said. The boathouse will be fine. As we headed back outside toward the boathouse, I caught Aunt Betty watching me with an approving smile. She gave me a subtle thumbs up when no one else was looking. The boathouse was exactly as bad as Vanessa had described, dusty, musty, and hot. But it was worth it to see the look on her face, to prove that I was willing to sleep in a shack before I'd let Lily be excluded. I can't believe we're really doing this, Robert muttered as he set our bags down in the small bedroom. Believe it, I replied, opening windows to let in the sea breeze. And just wait until dinner. Dinner that first night was a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare. Vanessa had prepared her famous seafood paella without bothering to check whether Emma had any allergies or aversions. Luckily, Emma loved seafood. I'd come prepared, bringing a selection of gourmet desserts from Boston's best bakery, which I presented with innocent generosity. I thought I'd contribute to the meal, I explained as I set out the elegant pastries. since we're such a burden on the house's resources. James nearly choked on his wine. Next to me, Robert rubbed his temples like he was getting a headache. How thoughtful, Vanessa said through gritted teeth, though I'd already made my key lime pie. Her homemade pie sat on the sideboard, its presentation slightly haphazard, next to my professional pastries. I felt a twinge of guilt until I remembered what she'd said about Lily not being family. We can have both, I said magnanimously. There's always room for more dessert. Is there? Vanessa muttered under her breath. Dinner conversation was strained, with James and Robert making awkward attempts at normalcy by discussing work, while the teenagers mostly stared at their phones between bites. Lily and Emma, however, were having a wonderful time, genuinely excited by the beachfront location and the vacation ahead. Mrs. Mitchell, Emma said to me, thank you so much for inviting me. This house is amazing. You're welcome, sweetie, and please call me Caroline. It is a beautiful house, Aunt Betty agreed. My brother and his wife bought it the year after they founded the airline. Such wonderful memories here. It's a shame they left it jointly to James and me, Robert said, an edge to his voice I'd never heard before. Perhaps they should have specified who gets to decide who stays here. James set down his fork. Robert, no one is saying Lily can't stay here. There was a miscommunication, that's all. Was there? Robert challenged, because from what Caroline told me, the message seemed pretty clear. The teenagers had all stopped pretending to be absorbed in their phones, suddenly aware that adult drama was unfolding. Madison, James and Vanessa's 17-year-old daughter, was watching with particular interest. Robert, this isn't the time, Vanessa said tightly. We have guests. Yes, we do, I agreed. My daughter's best friend, who is just as welcome here as your children's friends. Vanessa's face flushed. I never said she wasn't. No, you just said my daughter wasn't. The table fell silent. Even the teenagers looked uncomfortable now. Lily stared down at her plate, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and vindication. Caroline, James began, his tone placating. Vanessa, never! Please don't tell me what I did or didn't hear, James, I interrupted. I've spent 15 years biting my tongue while your wife treats my daughter like an unwanted houseguest in this family. I'm done pretending. Mom, Lily whispered, her face red. It's okay. Really? No, it's not okay, I insisted. And it's time everyone acknowledged it. Vanessa pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I won't sit here and be attacked in my own home. It's not your home, Robert said quietly. It's my parents' home, which they left to James and me, equally. Vanessa looked to James for support, but he seemed torn, shooting glances between his wife and his brother. I think, Aunt Betty interjected, her voice calm but authoritative, that we should all take a deep breath. This vacation has barely started, and there's no reason we can't salvage it. I agree, James said, relieved by the interruption. Let's all just calm down. Vanessa's mouth was set in a thin line, but she sat back down. I could see the calculations running behind her eyes, how to shift the narrative, how to regain the upper hand. She'd always been good at manipulating situations to her advantage. You're right, of course, she said after a moment, her voice honey-sweet again. I apologize if there was any misunderstanding, Caroline. Of course Lily is family. She's always been family. The insincerity was palpable, but I nodded, deciding to accept the hollow apology for now. Thank you, Vanessa. The rest of dinner passed in strained silence, broken only by Aunt Betty's valiant attempts at conversation and the occasional comment from one of the teenagers. When it was finally over, everyone seemed relieved to scatter. Lily and Emma helped clear the table, then announced they were going down to the beach to watch the sunset. Robert headed to the den to talk business with James, while Vanessa busied herself in the kitchen, pointedly refusing my offers of help. I found myself alone on the back deck with Aunt Betty, watching the girls make their way down the path to the shore. "Well," Aunt Betty said, settling into a deck chair beside me, "that was quite the opening salvo." I winced. Was I too harsh? She considered this, then shook her head. "No, I don't think so. It needed to be said, though perhaps not in front of all the children." "You're right," I admitted. I let my temper get the better of me. "Understandably," Aunt Betty patted my hand, "Vanessa has never made things easy for you or Lily. I've watched it for years, hoping James or Robert would address it." "You noticed?" I asked, surprised. Aunt Betty had never let on that she saw the dynamics at play. "My dear, I may be old, but I'm not blind. Or deaf. I hear how she talks about you when you're not around. Your little business, your unconventional family. As if there's something lacking because you're Lily's stepmother rather than her birth mother." My throat tightened. "I've tried so hard to take the high road." "And you've done admirably," Aunt Betty assured me. "But sometimes the high road doesn't lead where you need to go. Sometimes you need to take a detour through the trenches." Her eyes twinkled mischievously. "Or in your case, arrive by private jet." I laughed, feeling some of the tension leave my body. Was that too much? "It was exactly enough," Aunt Betty declared. "You should have seen Vanessa's face when you mentioned Lux Aviation. James told me they've been trying to secure a contract with them for months. I hadn't known that, but it made my choice of charter company even more satisfying." "I didn't do it to hurt the business," I said. "I just wanted to make a statement." "Oh, you made one," Aunt Betty chuckled. "And it was long overdue. My brother, God rest his soul, would have applauded. He always said a little healthy competition was good for the soul." We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching as Lily and Emma walked along the shoreline, collecting shells. The sight of my daughter, and I did think of her as my daughter, regardless of biology, looking so carefree and happy made all the drama worth it. "You know," Aunt Betty said thoughtfully, "I never had children of my own. But if I had, I would have wanted to be the kind of mother you are to Lily." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you, Betty. That means more than you know. She's lucky to have you. And Robert is lucky too, even if he doesn't always stand up when he should." I sighed. "He's caught in the middle. It's not easy for him." "No, it's not," she agreed. "But that doesn't excuse it. Brothers fight. Families have disagreements. It's part of life. But allowing Vanessa to treat Lily the way she has, that's not right, and Robert knows it." She was right, of course. For all my anger at Vanessa, a part of me had always been hurt that Robert hadn't been more forceful in defending his daughter. He loved Lily, I knew that without question, but his avoidance of conflict had allowed the situation to fester for years. "I think he finally understands that," I said, remembering the way Robert had backed me up at dinner. This might be the wake-up call we all needed. "Let's hope so," Aunt Betty replied, "for everyone's sake." The next few days fell into an uneasy rhythm. Vanessa maintained a cool politeness toward me, while being ostentatiously welcoming to Lily and Emma, a transparent attempt to prove she had no issues with my daughter. James seemed torn between supporting his wife and trying to repair the rift with his brother. Robert, to my surprise and gratitude, continued to stand firm, making it clear that Lily was an equal member of the family. The teenagers, thankfully, seemed largely oblivious to the adult tensions. They spent their days on the beach, their evenings playing board games or watching movies. Lily and Emma were fully integrated into the cousin group, though I noticed Madison kept a certain distance, like mother, like daughter. On the 4th day of vacation, I was sitting on the beach, watching the kids play a rowdy game of volleyball, when Vanessa approached and sat in the empty chair beside me. I tensed, expecting another barb exchange, but she seemed subdued. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I'm listening." She stared out at the ocean for a long moment before speaking. "James says the company is in trouble." Of all the things I'd expected her to say, this wasn't one of them. What kind of trouble? Financial trouble. Apparently, 3 of their biggest corporate clients are considering switching to Lux Aviation. She shot me a pointed look. The same company you so conspicuously hired. I felt a stab of guilt, quickly replaced by defensiveness. That's unfortunate, but hardly my fault. I hired them for one flight. A flight you didn't need to take, Vanessa countered. A flight you took purely to make me look bad. I didn't deny it. Can you blame me after what you said about Lily? Vanessa had the grace to look uncomfortable. I shouldn't have said that. It was unkind. Coming from Vanessa, this was practically a full apology. I was momentarily lost for words. Here's the thing, she continued when I didn't respond. James and Robert need to present a united front right now. The company is their legacy from their father. If it fails, she trailed off, but the implication was clear. And you think our family disagreement is going to affect the business? I know it will, she said firmly. Robert is already pulling away, suggesting they might need to split the company. And if that happens, neither of them will be as strong alone as they are together. I considered this. Robert hadn't mentioned any business troubles to me, but that wasn't unusual. He tried to keep work separate from home life as much as possible. What exactly are you asking me to do, Vanessa? She sighed, looking suddenly tired. I'm asking for a truce. For the sake of the business, for the sake of the family. A truce implies both sides have been fighting, I pointed out. All I've done is stand up for my daughter after years of you treating her like she doesn't belong. Vanessa looked away, her profile rigid. I never meant to make her feel unwelcome. Didn't you? You've excluded her, belittled her, forgotten to invite her to events. And it stops now, Vanessa. Truce or no truce. I know, she said quietly. And I'm sorry. The words seemed to physically pain her, and despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Vanessa had always been insecure beneath her polished exterior. I'd recognized it from the beginning, but had never understood why she'd channeled that insecurity into animosity toward Lily. Why? I asked. Why Lily? She was just a child when Robert and I got married. She never did anything to you. Vanessa was silent for so long I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible over the sound of the waves. Because she looks exactly like Robert's first wife. I blinked in surprise. What? She's the spitting image of Rebecca. Surely you've seen the photos. I had, of course. There were a few old pictures of Robert and his ex-wife tucked away in albums. Lily did resemble her mother physically. They had the same dark hair and heart-shaped face, but I'd never given it much thought. So every time I look at her, I'm reminded that our families aren't the same, Vanessa said, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. My children are Mitchells by blood on both sides. They're the true heirs to the Mitchell legacy. Lily is half someone else. I stared at her, incredulous. That's what this has been about? Some twisted idea of bloodlines and legacies. Vanessa had the decency to look ashamed. It sounds terrible when you say it like that. Because it is terrible, Vanessa. Lily is Robert's daughter. Period. She has just as much right to the Mitchell name as your children do. I know that logically, she admitted, but I've never been able to shake the feeling that she doesn't truly belong, that she's a reminder of Robert's life before us, before the family business. Lily has nothing to do with the business, I pointed out. Doesn't she? Robert is already talking about giving her shares when she graduates college. Shares that would otherwise go to James's children eventually. So that was it, not just emotional insecurity, but financial self-interest. I shouldn't have been surprised. That's Robert's decision, I said coldly. Lily is his daughter, and Madison, Parker, and Tyler are James's children. They've grown up in the business, attended all the company events, been groomed to take over someday. Lily has shown zero interest. Maybe because she's never been made to feel welcome, I countered. Maybe because her aunt has treated her like an outsider her entire life. Vanessa flinched, but didn't argue. Maybe, she conceded, but that doesn't change the facts. If Mitchell Airways splits, if Robert takes his half and goes separate ways, it could destroy everything Arthur Mitchell built. Arthur had been Robert and James's father, a larger-than-life figure who had started the charter airline with one small plane and built it into a regional success. He'd been gone for 5 years now, but his presence still loomed large in the family. "So what do you want from me?" I asked again. "I want you to talk to Robert. Convince him to work things out with James. For the sake of the company, for the sake of all our children's future." I laughed without humor. "You want me to help save the company that you think Lily has no right to inherit a part of?" "I want to protect what Arthur built," Vanessa insisted, "for all the Mitchell descendants." "Including Lily?" Vanessa hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Including Lily." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. There was calculation there, certainly, but also a genuine concern for the family business. And maybe, just maybe, a hint of regret for her past treatment of my daughter. "I'll talk to Robert," I said finally. "But not for you, Vanessa. For Lily, for Robert, and for Arthur's legacy. And in return, this stops now. The snide comments, the exclusions, all of it. Lily is family, full, equal, unqualified family. And you'll treat her as such from now on." "I will," she agreed, and for once I believed her. As we sat there in an uneasy truce, I spotted Lily jogging up from the volleyball game, her face flushed with exertion and happiness. "Mom," she called, "Emma and I are crushing it. Come play with us." "Go," Vanessa said quietly. "We're done here." I stood, brushing sand from my legs. "No, Vanessa, we're just beginning. But at least now we understand each other." I joined Lily on the beach, letting her pull me toward the volleyball game where the other teenagers were waiting. As I looked back, I saw Vanessa still sitting alone in her beach chair, watching us with an unreadable expression. That evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I found Robert in the boathouse, reviewing company documents on his laptop. I sat beside him on the small bed and told him about my conversation with Vanessa. "Is it true?" I asked when I'd finished. "Is the company in trouble?" Robert ran a hand through his hair, a sure sign he was stressed. "Not trouble exactly, but we're at a crossroads. 3 of our biggest clients are considering other options, including Lux." "Because of our flight?" I asked, guilt nagging at me. "No," he assured me. "This has been brewing for months. James wants to stick with the traditional model, focusing on business clients, keeping things the way Dad did them. I think we need to expand, modernize, maybe even look into the luxury market that Lux dominates. Hence the friction." "Exactly. And the situation with Lily was just the final straw. I'm tired of compromising, Caroline. Not just in business, but in how our family is treated." I took his hand in mine. "I appreciate that. More than you know. But splitting the company isn't the answer. Arthur wouldn't have wanted that." Robert sighed heavily. "I know, but I don't see a way forward with James. He'll never stand up to Vanessa and she'll never change." "Actually," I said, "I think she might. Or at least she might try." I told him about the rest of our conversation. Vanessa's admission about her insecurity, her concern for the Mitchell legacy, her promise to treat Lily better going forward. "Do you believe her?" Robert asked when I'd finished. "I believe she's sincere about wanting to save the business," I replied honestly. "The rest, time will tell. But I think laying everything out in the open has helped. Maybe we all needed to stop pretending." Robert nodded slowly. "I'll talk to James tomorrow. See if we can find some common ground." "That's all I'm asking," I said, leaning in to kiss him. "And Robert? Thank you for standing up for Lily these past few days. It means everything to her, and to me." The next morning, Robert and James disappeared for a long walk on the beach, deep in conversation. Vanessa made a point of inviting Lily to help her prepare lunch, an unprecedented occurrence, while Emma joined Madison and the other girls for a shopping trip into town. I found myself alone with Aunt Betty again, this time helping her organize the family photo albums she'd brought along. "You've been busy," she observed, a knowing twinkle in her eye. "Just trying to keep the peace," I replied. The peace, the company, the family legacy," Aunt Betty mused. "Quite a responsibility you've taken on." I smiled ruefully. Someone had to. "Indeed." She patted my hand. "Arthur would be proud. He always said the Mitchell women were the true strength behind the Mitchell name." By the time Robert and James returned from their walk, they seemed, if not completely reconciled, at least more aligned than they had been in years. They announced at dinner that they would be working together on a new vision for Mitchell Airways, combining James's traditional approach with Robert's more innovative ideas. Vanessa made a show of raising her glass in a toast. "To the Mitchell legacy," she said, her eyes meeting mine across the table. "And to family, all of our family. It wasn't perfect. One vacation couldn't erase years of tension and hurt feelings. But it was a start. On our last night at the beach house, we had a bonfire on the shore. All the teenagers were getting along now, even Madison and Lily sharing marshmallows and laughing at inside jokes. James and Robert discussed business with genuine enthusiasm, while Aunt Betty regaled us with stories of Arthur's early days starting the airline. Vanessa sat beside me, both of us watching the family scene unfold. "This is nice," she said quietly. "It is," I agreed. "It's what family should be." "I've been thinking," she said after a moment. "Maybe next year we should charter a yacht instead of staying at the beach house. All of us together. Really make a statement to the industry that Mitchell Airways is stepping up its game." I laughed, surprised by the suggestion. "That's not a bad idea, actually." "I do have them, occasionally," she replied with a hint of her old sass. Then, more seriously, "I really am sorry, Caroline, for all of it." I nodded, accepting the apology for what it was, imperfect but genuine. "Fresh start." "Fresh start," she agreed. As the bonfire died down and the stars came out, I watched Lily laughing with her cousins, finally being treated as an equal part of the Mitchell clan. The journey here hadn't been easy. It had taken a private jet, a confrontation years in the making, and a threat to the family business. But we'd arrived at a better place. And as Robert put his arm around me, pulling me close under the starlit sky, I knew that sometimes you had to make a grand entrance to finally find your place.